And that's part of what Deborah said. We can't be polite anymore. We can't go to Congress and say, will you please impeach the president? Because they're not going to do it. We have to totally ignore Congress. It has to be a backdoor impeachment process. It has to be an impeachment coming from the people. Because the Democrats have abandoned us. And I go all over the country. I probably speak to more people than, a lot of other people do. Probably more than anybody here. And their question isn't, is impeachment possible? Their question every single time is, why hasn't he been impeached yet? So the country is with us. America is with us. It's how do we take this anger that permeates our society against George Bush? And trust me, it's there. You live in New York City, you're on board with me. I'm speaking to the choir, preaching to the choir, they always say. But I go all over the country, and the country is with you. The country is with me. So why won't the stinking Democrats do their jobs? And I have to tell these people, because they're part of the problem. That's why they're not doing their jobs. When Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and John Murtha receive contributions from defense contractors, it is in their interest to keep this war going. It's in their interest to give George Bush billions of dollars. When Nancy Pelosi even invests in such companies as Raytheon. So that is a clear conflict of interest. So on November 7th, I could already see there was going to be a problem. That people were going to say, well, the Democrats are in control, we can relax. And today we hear, John Conyers was on Democracy Now! Yesterday. He said impeachment is a luxury. No, it's not a luxury, it is a necessity. It shouldn't distract Congress from the other business, because that right now should be their only business. Their only business should be holding George Bush accountable for what he did to my family, to Carlos and Melida's family, to Juan's family, to Tiffany's family. Not only be held accountable for those crimes, but to prevent future crimes. If we don't imprison these people, 20, 30 years, we'll be back here again. There'll be another Gold Star mom, and she'll be saying, why didn't you stop George Bush so my son would be alive, or my daughter would be alive? I don't want to face that Gold Star mom and say, sorry, it was impossible, I just gave up. I don't want to face her. I don't want to be responsible for her child's death. And that's what many of the speakers have said. Martin Luther King Jr. said, when does silence equal complicity? From this moment forward, with their stupid non-binding resolution, well, how do they think a non-binding resolution? That's what they wasted time on. That's what they wasted a week on, as a non-binding resolution. I rarely agree with George Bush. But at his press conference this week, he said if the Democrats really felt strongly about it, they would cut off funding. They would put their money where their mouth is and not give any more money for war. But then again, he says, well, then, they know they have to support the troops. Support the troops. They're sending 20,000 more that don't have body armor. The New York Times just wrote an article saying they won't get body armor till June. So what are they supposed to do, dodge the bullets and shrapnel until June? Are they supposed to hole up and pray that they don't need to use body armor till June? And that's supporting the troops? My son was wearing a Vietnam-era flak jacket when he was killed. That's supporting the troops? A friend of mine, her friend came home from Iraq, was in the Marines, said that to sustain himself, he had to eat ants. That's supporting the troops? Sending them to an illegal and immoral war, that's supporting the troops? No, the way to support them is to bring them home. And you know, there's one thing that people don't talk about. If they're not in Iraq, they don't need support. If they're home, they don't need all this money. There's money in the pipeline to bring them home. But it's never been about our soldiers. We've already wasted $500 billion in this war. They're cutting back VA benefits. And where was I going with this? It's never been about supporting the troops. The people who are getting the money are the people that Nancy Pelosi invests in. They're the same people that give money to the Republicans and the Democrats for their campaign contributions. We cannot rely on these people. We can only rely on ourselves. And I heard today, you know, after John Conyers said impeachment is a luxury, Dennis Kucinich and John Conyers have both said if George Bush invades Iran, they'll institute impeachment proceedings. So what are we supposed to do? Get down on our knees and pray that George Bush invades Iran? There's already been too many people killed. And then, you know, like Deborah said, all the rhetoric is, oh, we can't let Iran have one nuclear bomb. We can let Israel have hundreds and America have thousands, but God forbid if Iran gets one. You know, shouldn't we be taking out the log out of our own eye before we look at the speck in Iran's eyes?